All right, we are streaming and sending out notices. Oops. September 10th, 2020. Wait a second. Wait a second. Hold on a second. Phew, so many messages. Alrighty. Let's see. We're online and we're ready to roll. We are online. Okay, gang. Here we are again. Let us chant a nice Vaishnava song for the pleasure of their lordship, Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. What song should we chant tonight? Actually, maybe the same song we chanted this morning. Okay, that was Shri Radhika Stava. Hold on a second. Okay. Two more days till Janmashtami. Today, of course, is Saturday. You are. If you're in the south, and it's probably one more day till Janmashtami for you. But anyway, 2 more days for us. And Janmashtami, but we're going to limited crowds this year because of the COVID. And so it's going to be a lot of people in and out. And quite limited. And we ask you all to pray for the devotees in New Orleans, because New Orleans is expecting a hurricane, which is a cyclone, and it's going to be category 3 or 4, maybe not a direct hit on New Orleans. It may go to the side. It looks like it's going to go to the side. But, and anyway, we have devotees there, and pray for them. And they'll be all right by Krishna's grace. The whole material world is dangerous. Padam padam, yadvi padam natesham. Remember that. Padam padam, yadvi padam. It's danger at every step. Every step. Just like today I heard on the news there were killer wasps around. And I was thinking about those killer wasps as I was picking figs from our fig tree. We have a holy fig tree. And so I was picking figs and I was thinking, oh my God, killer wasps. Hope they don't kill me. Anyway, danger at every step. But if we remember Krishna, Krishna's always protecting us. Okay. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Jaya Gokula Taruni Mandalam Maite Namotadurati Vardana Vadi Niskutavina Vipineshe Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Jaya Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Jaya Shamanudari Navashashi Lake Lalita Saki Guna Rami Tavi Shakti Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Karunam Kuru Mai Karunam Bharate Sanaka Sanatana Varnika Jayate Karunam Kuru Mai Karunam Bharate Sanaka Sanatana Varnika Jayate Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Jayate Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Jayate Karuni Mandala Maite Gokula Taruni Mandala Maite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Jayate Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Jayate Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Pada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Hribo 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 Jago Haribo 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 Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahansa Parvatacharya also Teta Satashi Shima His Divine Grace Sabaya Chaitanya Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Voice Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Ram Say Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopikapna Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Giti Verdhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Maturadam Ki Jai Jagadavasami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shrimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari 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 Om. All glories to the assembled devotees. Glories to the assembled devotees. Always the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Budale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prashani Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschat Dejtari. Actually, I just noticed that in Sydney, your Janmashtami is on Tuesday. I just looked up in the calendar. So, basically, ours is on Monday. And so, Monday for us, Tuesday for you. So, it will work out very well if I give a Janmashtami class on my Janmashtami, not my Krishna's Janmashtami, the United States Janmashtami, which will be Tuesday morning for you. That's pretty cool. Everything works out pretty well. So it's Tuesday in Sydney, And it is Monday here in the United States, and Prabhupada's day is Tuesday in the United States, and I guess it's Wednesday in Sydney, and I assume that's also the same for New Zealand and Fiji Loka. Okay, so happy Janmashtami, but it's not Janmashtami yet. So we're going to go on and continue reading from the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, and the chapter we're reading from right now has to do with, what does it have to do with? It has to do with the cleansing of the Gundicha temple. And the Gundicha temple, just to reiterate, is the temple to which Lord Jagannath goes during the Rath Yatra, the first part of the Rath Yatra. And the reason he goes there is because Gundicha represents Vrindavan. So that's the first part of the Rath Yatra. And the second part of the Rath Yatra, or the last part, as he comes back to Nilachal, to Puri. So, Gundicha temple represents our hearts. And our hearts right now are filthy. Lust. Ooh. What does lust mean? Using another entity to satisfy our senses. Using another person as an object. That's right. You look at the other person as an object and you want to make them into the image you want. Just like if you're a lady, you want to have a man with a beard. That is called lust, because you're making someone into the person. It's just like taking a little piece of clay and you make someone into something that you want. Anyway, this is lust. To enjoy. I enjoy you. You. Okay. Yuck. Yuck. And double yuck. So, after... I don't want to be someone's object. I want to be a subject. A toy, little doll. Little puppy. So anyway, and then after lust, there's anger. Anger is when our desires do not get satisfied, and we cannot manipulate the person the way we want. We get angry, or we get angry at our computer. Things don't work out the way we want, which is quite often. Because if something could go wrong, it will go wrong. This anger. I'm supposed to be in charge. Or someone doesn't fit into our little box that we want them. Anyway, and then there's greed. I want more and more and more. Cars do I have today? So many more will I get tomorrow? Just like you see, actually, this famous person who used to have a late night TV show. He has like 50 cars in his garage. Just like, I'm not going to mention his name. I know his name. Starts with a J. So anyway, so then lust, anger, greed, illusion. Illusion means I think I'm the body. I think I'm male or female, and therefore people with a different bodily makeup cannot be Krishna conscious like me. That's called chauvinism. Okay, lust, anger, greed, delusion, envy. Ooh, I want what you have. And actually, Prabhupada said envy even refers to when people want to eat meat. Because what they want, their bodies. They're envious of the other person doesn't have a right to their body. I have a right to control their body. And that also fits in with lust, too. When we try to control someone else's body. And make it look like we want it to look. So that's envy. And then, what was one? Oh, fear. Fear. Because we see this world, the Bhagavatam describes a world of duality. Boya, Caitanya, Vaishya, Shat. So when we see duality, we see ourselves different, we see ourselves as part of the material world, and we don't understand that the soul is different than the body, and we think in terms of death, those other dualistic concepts, then we're very fearful. What if this happens? What if there is a hurricane and I can't cook my pizza tonight? Or I can't have my ice cream because it won't stay in the refrigerator or the freezer. So anyway, we're fearful about some of these. What if she doesn't like me? What if she does like me? That's even worse. What if... Anyway, what if there's a robber outside? So in this world, hurricanes and tornadoes and dangerous people. Padam, padam, yavi, padam, natesham. You don't know whether we're going to be alive tomorrow, 1 second from now. Okay, so these are called anarthas, things that we don't want, and they are dirtying the heart. And so our process is to cheto darbana marjanam, to clean the heart, so we can be truly empathic, compassionate, and loving. That's the opposite of lust, anger, greed, is to be loving and compassionate. Just not try to control people, but to accept people for what they are and offer them Krishna consciousness, not preach so heavily to them that they have guilt trips, that they have nervous breakdowns. Anyway. Okay, on that happy note, interesting. I like Zoom because I can see people's expressions when I get look at people, and people do not know that I'm looking at them. It's actually really nice. It's really nice, you know, because if you're actually in person with people, and then someone goes, "He's talking to me." But wow, I am talking to everybody, and if the shoe fits, okay. So on that happy note, let's go on to the Caitanya Caritamrta. Anyway, you have to have a little fun in life. So Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, we're talking about the cleansing of the Gunja temple. Alrighty, text 33 is our next text. Eka yukti achayare karagavadana tumina mile leha tanre tanra prana. Nityananda Prabhu then submitted one suggestion for the Lord's consideration. There is a way, he suggested, by which you need not meet the king, but which would enable the king to continue living. So Nityananda is coming up with a win-win here. Wow. Eka bahiravasa yadi deha kripa kari taha pana prana raki tamara asha dadi. If you out of your mercy send one of your outer garments to the king would live hoping to see you sometime in the future. It's very intelligent. Sri Nityananda Prabhu was very tactfully suggesting that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu give a piece of his old clothing to the king. Even though the king was not to meet the Lord, the king would then be pacified by receiving such a cloth. The king was very anxious to see the Lord, yet it was not possible for the Lord to see him. Just a situation, this expert mediation, dealing with people's needs. Just to resolve the situation, Nityananda Prabhu suggested that the Lord send an old piece of clothing. Thus the king would understand that the Lord was showing mercy to him. The king would then not do anything drastic like giving up his life or being mendicant. And as described yesterday, the king's conception of a mendicant was as someone who wore an ivory earring on one of his ears, like a gypsy. That's not what a sannyasi does. A Vaishnava is not a gypsy. Prabhu kai tumi saba harama vidvan ye balahaya se kara samadhana. The Lord said, since you are all very learned personalities, whatever you decide, I shall accept. Tabi Nichananda Goshani Govindera Pasha Magyala Ila Prabhura Hika Bahirvasa. Lord Nityananda Prabhu then obtained a garment used by the Lord by requesting it from Govinda. Se Barivasa Sarvabhauma Pashadila Sarvabhauma Se Vastra Rajari Patala Patala. Thus Nityananda Prabhu, too far, delivered the old cloth into the care of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya sent it to the king. Vastrapana Rajara Haila Anandita Mana Prabhu Rupa Kari Vakari Vastrera Pujana. When the king received the old cloth, he began to worship it exactly as he would worship the Lord personally. This is also the conclusion of the Vedic injunctions. Since the Supreme Personality of God is the absolute truth, everything in relation to him is on the same platform. The king had great affection for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and although he did not see the Lord, he had nonetheless already attained the conclusion of devotional service. Immediately upon receiving the cloth from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the king began to worship as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord's clothing, bedding, slippers, and everything required as an ordinary necessity are all transformations of Shesha, the expansion of Sri Baladev, who serves as Lord Vishnu's bed. Thus the cloth and other paraphernalia of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are but other forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything connected to the Lord is worshipable. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructs us that just as Krishna is worshipable, Krishna's place, Vrindavan, is also worshipable. And as Vrindavan is worshipable, similarly, the paraphernalia in Vrindavan. The trees, roads, river, everything is worshipable. A pure devotee thus sings, Jaya Jaya Vrindavan Vasi Yata Jana. That's from Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami's The Glories of Vrindavan. All glories to the residents of Vrindavan. If a devotee has staunch devotional attitude, all these conclusions will be awakened within the heart. Yasya deve paravatir yata deve tatagaro tashaiti katita yartha prakashante mahatmana. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the knowledge automatically revealed. Vishveta 623. Thus, following the footsteps of Maharaj, Pratapuruja, and other devotees, we should learn to worship everything belonging to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is referred to by Lord Shiva as Tadihanam. In the Padma Purana, it is said, Radhadanam Sabesham Vishnu Radhanam Param Samarchanam. O Devi, the most exalted system of worship is the worship of Lord Vishnu. Greater than that is the worship of Tadiya, or anything belonging to Vishnu. Sri Vishnu is Satchidananda Vigraha, that's from the Brahma Samhita 5.1. Similarly, the most confidential servant of Krishna, the spiritual master, and all devotees of Vishnu are Tadiya. The Satchidananda Vigraha, Guru, Vaishnavas, and things used by them must be considered Tadiya, and without a doubt, worshipable by all living beings. Wow. So several things contained here. One is that all of the Lord's paraphernalia is considered to be a manifestation of Seshanag or Balaram. That's the first. And therefore it can be worshipped, and those things utilized by the spiritual master or the deities can be utilized by oneself. Except, there are exceptions where you don't utilize those things. For example, if you have a scarf that was used by the spiritual master, here's a scarf that was utilized by Srila Prabhupada in his Murti form at the temple, which is non-different than when Prabhupada was present. And if I put it on, I can utilize it. Of course, it's not warm right now, so I don't need to do that. But this is a scarf. Smells like sandal, anyway. Utilized by Srila Prabhupada. So I make spiritual advancement just by going like this. Whoop. Sorry about that. Sorry, my camera went wild because it was too spiritual for my camera. So anyway, so you make spiritual advancement just by using a scarf. But there's certain remnants of the spiritual master, certain remnants of Krishna you're not supposed to use. What are those remnants? The shoes and the socks. Those you can worship, but do not put on the shoes and the socks. Or in the bed. Of course, you don't put on the bed, but don't sleep on the spiritual master's bed. Actually, there's an interesting story about Prabhupada's bed. This is really interesting. It wasn't really Prabhupada's bed, but Prabhupada slept on it. Once upon a time, when I joined the Hare Krishna movement, then Prabhupada came. And Prabhupada stayed in the temple, of course, stayed in the temple, and he slept on a rented bed. Because at that time in the Hare Krishna movement, beds were verboten. Verboten is German for forbidden. There was no question of a devotee ever having a bed or a mattress. Someone broke the principles by having a bed or a mattress. Everybody slept on the floor, and you had your little sleeping bag or roll that you rolled out at night. You rolled it up in the morning, and that was it. No beds, Prabhus. But Prabhupada was coming. We wanted to give Prabhupada a bed, and we didn't have a bed, and we didn't have money to buy a bed. Plus, there was no space in the temple to keep a bed. So we actually rented 1-800 rent a bed. So we rented a bed for Prabhupada, very nice, and Prabhupada gave darshan from that bed at night, gave initiation to devotees, and then Prabhupada left the next day back to New York. I think I'm pretty sure I remember that. And then who comes the next day? And it wasn't Prabhupada. The temple and stay overnight. It was, you can never guess, my mother. So because it was a rented bed, we thought, you gotta let my mother sleep on something. My mother's not gonna sleep on the floor. She's not a brahmachari. She's a mamachari, not a brahmachari. So we let my mother stay in the same bed that Prabhupada has stayed in. Wow, what mercy. That's amazing. And it wasn't really like Prabhupada's bed per se. It was a rented bed, and obviously so many people were going to stay in it in the future. So it wasn't a violation of the principles. Had I known what I know today, I would have kept those sheets. I would have... Anyway, I didn't know so much in those days. You know, we thought Prabhupada was always going to be with us, and we didn't hanker after remnants so much in those days. So anyway, my mother got the mercy. Amazing. And she stayed overnight in the Hare Krishna because she was so concerned as to what her son had gotten into. And the next morning, prasadam, she took prasadam, she sat on a seat, and we all sat dutifully on the floor. And we ate off of pieces of wax paper, you know, from a roll. You rolled out the wax paper, put it on the floor. My mother was horrified. There was her dearmost son eating off of the floor. And to make matters worse, I spilled some water, and I got down on my hands and knees and started to lick up the water right in front of my mother. Oh my God. Anyway, so that was the story of my mother using Prabhupada's bed And I'm sure she made some spiritual advancement, and Krishna's taking care of her right now because of that. Okay, let's continue. Ramananda Roy Abe Dakshina Haite Haila Prabhu Sange Rahite Hake Nivedila. After returning from his service in South India, Ramananda Roy requested the king to allow him to remain with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Tabi Raja Santoshe Tanhare Agnya Dila Apani Milana Lagi Sadite Lagila. When Ramananda Roy requested the king to allow him to stay with the Lord, the king immediately gave him permission with great satisfaction. As for the king himself, he solicited Ramananda Roy to make a meeting arrangement. So the king wasn't really satisfied with just the clothes. He said, I got to see him. Mahaprabhu Mahakripa Karena Tomare More Milibare Avasya Sahibe Tanhare. The king told Ramananda Roy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very, very merciful to you, therefore please solicit mine with him without fail. Duijanakshetre Abe Aila Ramananda Raya Tabe Prabhure Milila. The king and Ramananda Roy returned together to Jagannath Kshetra Puri, and Sri Ramananda Roy met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prabhu Pade Prema Bhakti Tanaila Rajara Prasangapana Chekahe Para Para. At that time, Ramananda Roy informed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about the ecstatic love of the king. Indeed, as soon as there was some opportunity, he repeatedly informed the Lord about the king. I'm sure Lord Chaitanya got the message. Rajamantri Ramananda Yavahare Nipuna Rajapriti Kahi Dravyaila Prabhura Vana. Sri Ramananda Roy was indeed a diplomatic minister for the king. His general behavior was very expert, and simply by describing the king's love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gradually softened the Lord's mind. So he's using diplomacy in the Lord's service. A diplomat in the material world knows how to deal with people, especially in political affairs. Some of the great devotees of the Lord, like Ramananda Roy, Raghunath Das Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and Rupa Goswami, were government officers and had a background of very opulent household life. Consequently, they knew how to deal with people. In many instances, we have seen the diplomacy of Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, and Ramananda Roy employed in the service of the Lord. When Raghunath Das Goswami's father and uncle were to be arrested by government officials, Raghunath Das Goswami hid them and personally met the government officers and settled the affair diplomatically. This is but one instance. Similarly, Sanatana Goswami, after resigning his ministership, was thrown into jail, and he bribed the attendant of the jail so he could leave the clutches of the Nawab and live with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now we see Ramananda Roy, a most confidential devotee of the Lord, diplomatically soften the heart of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, despite the fact that the Lord definitely decided not to meet the king. The diplomacy of Ramananda Roy and entreaties of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and all the other great devotees succeeded. The conclusion is that diplomacy used for the service of the Lord is a form of devotional service. Now, here diplomacy doesn't mean that you're lying. Generally we understand the diplomat, he's another thing to another person. That's not the type of diplomacy that's mentioned here. Diplomacy means, in this particular case, being very soft in introducing a particular subject matter and being determined to introduce it very, very nicely, softly, according to etiquette, so the person's mind becomes influenced. So there's different understandings of the word diplomacy. Say if someone's a diplomat. But it means that someone lies to one, tells the truth, lies to two people, or whatever, is not straightforward. But sometimes the word diplomat means someone who's assigned to be an ambassador of a particular country. That's why it's called a diplomat. Anyway, the word has various meanings according to the context. Ukantate prataparudra nare rahibare Ramananda sadilena prabhure milibare. It doesn't always mean duplicitous. That's the point I'm making. Maharaja Prataparuja, in great anxiety, could not endure not seeing the Lord. Therefore, Sri Ramananda Roy, by his diplomacy, arranged a meeting with the Lord for the king. Ramananda Prabhupaya Kaila Nivedana Ekaba Pratapa Rudre Dekaha Charana. Sri Ramananda Roy frankly requested Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, please show your lotus feet to the king at least once. Prabhu Kai Ramananda Kai Vachariya Vachake Milite Yuyaya Hana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, my dear Ramananda, you should make this request only after duly considering whether it is befitting for a sannyasi to meet a king. Phew. Rajari Milane Bhikshu Kera Dwi Loganasha Halaloka Rahun Loke Kapahasa. The mendicant meets a king. This world and the next world are both destroyed for the mendicant. Indeed, what is there to say of the next world? In this world, people will joke if a sannyasi meets a king. So in other words, if a sannyasi engages in material affairs, for him it's like eating his own vomit. That's to describe it. Tungsi is the actual word. He's just like, it becomes a disgrace to the sannyasa order, a disgrace to himself, and then he doesn't achieve spiritual perfection. So he's lost to this world and in the next. Ramananda Kai Tumi Ishvara Swatantra Caritamrta Bhaya Tumi Naha Para Tantra. Ramananda Roy replied, my dear Lord, you are the supreme independent personality. You have nothing to fear from anyone because you are not dependent on anyone. Prabhu Kai Amimanusha Shrame Sannyasi Kaya Mano Vakye Vyavahare Vayavasi. When Ramananda Roy addressed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu objected, saying, I am not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but an ordinary human being in the renounced order of life. Therefore, I must fear public opinion in three ways, with my body, mind, and words. What a pastime. Shuklavastre Masi Bindu Yaichena Lukaya Sanyasiral Pachudra Savaloke Gaya. As soon as the general public finds a little fault in the behavior of a sannyasi, they advertise it like wildfire. A black spot of ink cannot be hidden on a white cloth. It is always very prominent. Raya kahe kata papira kariyache avyahati Ishvara sevaka tomara bhakta gajapati. Ramananda Roy replied, so many sinful people. This King Prataparudra, the king of Orissa, is actually a servitor of the Lord and your devotee. Prabhukai Purnayaiche Dudera Kalasa Surabindu Patikea Nakare Parasha. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said, there may be much milk in a big pot, but if it's contaminated by a drop of liquor, it is untouchable. Woo. Yadyapi Pratapa Rudra Sarva Gunavan Tanhare Malina Kaila Ekaraja Nama. The king certainly possesses qualities, but simply by taking up the name king, he has infected everything. Ya. Tatapi Tamara Yadi Mahagraha Hoya Tabiyani Milaha Tumi Tanhara Tanaya. Very eager for the king to meet with me. Please first bring his son to meet me. So here's the second step. The king's son is going to meet Lord Chaitanya. Atmavai Jayate Putra Shastravani Putrera Milanayena Milibayapani. It is indicated in the revealed scriptures that the son represents the father. Therefore, the son's meeting with me would be just as good as the king's meeting with me. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10:78-36, it is said, Atma vai putra utpana iti vedanusha shanam. The Vedas enjoin that one is born as his own son. The Son is non-different from the Father, and this is admitted in every revealed scripture. In Christian theology, it is believed that Christ, the Son of God, is also God, or in other words, that they are identical. So Prabhupada here is sort of giving a purport or explaining why it is said that it is supposed to have said, I and the Father are one. And actually Prabhupada gave other explanations. They're one in purpose, but also the Father is manifest through the Son. So in one sense, just like we say, Yasha Prasada, Bhagavat Prasada, and also there's other verses too, that by pleasing the spiritual master, one pleases the Supreme Personality of God. And other explanations too, that the Supreme Lord is considered, that the spiritual master is considered the Supreme Personality of Servitor Godhead. So in many ways, the Lord is manifest through the spiritual master, or through his Son, through his good Son. Tabi Raya Yai Saba Rajare Kahila Prabhura Gaya Tanra Putralana Haila. Ramananda Roy then went to inform the king about his talks with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and following the Lord's orders, he brought the king's son to see him. Wow. Sundara Rajara Putra Shamala Varana Kishora Vayasa Diriga Kamala Nayana. The prince just entering upon him was very beautiful. He was blackish in complexion and had large lotus eyes. Lotus eyes means the eyes are shaped in such a way that they appear to go out to the ears. Pitambaradare ange ratna havarana Shri Krishna smarane tena pailodipana. The prince was dressed in yellow cloth, and there were jewel ornaments decorating. Therefore, anyone who saw him would remember Lord Krishna. Of course, the word used here is udipana. So if you've studied the bhavas, which we did when we read the Nectar of Devotion, you understand the first aspect or manifestation of bhavas or emotions are stimulations for emotions. And there's two types of things that stimulate emotions for Krishna, or emotions related to Krishna. And they're alambana and udipana. Wow. Hopefully someone remembers that. Alambana means directly Krishna. Like if you see Krishna in front of you, okay, that's pretty stimulating, I'll tell you that. And udipana, things related to Krishna. For example, you hear a flute, you see a flute, you see a peacock feather. All these different things are related to Krishna, and they help you remember Krishna, and they stimulate your emotion, your love for Krishna. Other emotions like anubhava, sattvika bhava. I'm not going to get into the whole thing right now. If you have a chari bhava and your sthai bhava. So, therefore, this word udipana is used because this is not Krishna directly, but something that stimulates Lord Chaitanya, remembering Lord Sri Krishna. And I know myself, if I see any young man with a swarthy complexion and with lotus eyes and in yellow cloth and jewels on his body, I will remember Krishna, because Krishna is pitambara. He dresses in yellow cloth, and he has lotus eyes, and he's new youth, navayovanam cha, and he has ornaments decorated in his body. Who would not remember Krishna? Dhanre deki mahaprabhura Krishna smriti haila primave shaitan ramili ahite la gila. Seeing the boy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately remembered Krishna. Meeting the boy in ecstatic love, the Lord began to speak. Hey Maha Bhagavata Yanharadar Shane Prajendra Nandana Smriti Haya Sarvajane. Here's the great devotee, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. Upon seeing him, everyone can remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, son of Maharaj Nanda. In his Anubhasha, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur states that a materialist mistakenly accepts and mind as the source of material enjoyment. In other words, a materialist accepts the bodily conception of life. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu did not regard the son of Maharaj Prataparuja with the idea that he was a materialist, being the son of a materialist, nor did he consider himself the enjoyer. Mayavadi philosophers make a great mistake in that the Satchidananda Vigraha, Brahmasamhita 5.1, the transcendental form of the Lord, is like a material body. However, there is no material contamination in transcendence, nor is there any possibility of imagining a spirituality in matter. One cannot accept matter as spirit, as indicated by the technical words Boma Ija Di. That's from the Bhagavatam 10.84.13. Materialistic Mayavadis imagine the form of God in matter, although according to their imagination, God is ultimately formless. This is simply mental speculation. Even though Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he placed himself in the position of a gopi. He also accepted the king's son directly as the son of Maharaj Nanda, Brajendra Nandana Hori. This is perfect vision according to the direction of the Vedic culture, as confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam Pandita Sambadarshinaha. It means a pandit sees everything equally. Bhagavad Gita 5.18. Such acceptance of the absolute truth according to Vaishnava philosophy is explained in both the Mundaka Upanishad 3.2.3 and the Katha Upanishad 1.2.23 in the following words. Nayamatma pravachanena labdro na medya na bhuna shutena yam evaishavanite tena labhyas tashaishadma vivrinute tanhum swam. The Supreme Lord is not obtained by expert explanations, by vast intelligence, nor even by much hearing. He is only by one who he himself chooses. To such a person he manifests his own form. So he chooses. Why does Krishna choose? Because that person pleases Krishna's devotees, so Krishna is drawn to whoever pleases his devotee. The living entity is entangled in material existence due to his lack of such spiritual vision. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is sung in his Kalyana Kalpataru, Samsara Shisha Prakati Vajya Purusha Abhimani Mudhi. When the living entity comes to the material world, he thinks himself the enjoyer, thus even more entangled. So it's not that actually Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought that the king's son was Krishna, but he saw Krishna in the king's son's appearance because it stimulated his love for Krishna. Like that story I've told many times before about Mukunda, the physician, who was talking to the Nawab Hussain Shah, the Muslim governor, and he was giving the Muslim governor some medical advice. And while he was giving the Muslim governor some medical advice, while the Muslim governor was seated very high on a dais, form, into the ear of the Muslim governor, the servant of the Muslim governor came forward to fan the Muslim governor. And when he came forward to fan the Muslim governor, he didn't have an electric fan, because there weren't electric fans at that time. He had a peacock fan. And when Mukunda saw the peacock feathers on the peacock fan, what did it remind him of? Krishna, because Krishna wears a peacock feather in his hair. And as soon as he was reminded of Krishna, he saw Krishna. Not that the peacock fan was Krishna, but he saw Krishna. Premanjana Churti Bhakti Vilochanena Santakshadaiva Vidiyeshu Vilokyanti. One who was in love with Krishna. Everything reminds him of Krishna. Just like in the material world. If one is in love with a young girl or boy or whatever, rascal, whatever, anyway, sorry. If one is madly in love in this world, then whatever you see, like if you see a flower, you don't exactly see the flower. You see, oh, this is something for my beloved. Just like when I see a flower, I think this is something for Krishna. I don't think, how nice that flower is. I think this flower should be offered to Krishna. When I see some fruit, I think the fruit should be offered to Krishna. When I see a mango, I don't think, yum, 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 sorry. I don't think yum, yum, yum. like a materialist would think, I think, wow, Krishna would really enjoy this mango. Like if I ever go into a supermarket and I see all these different varieties of fruits, I think Krishna would really enjoy it. I don't think, this would taste nice, that would taste nice, that would taste nice. Because if I was thinking like that, it would make me unqualified in many ways. So therefore, when a devotee sees anything in this world, he thinks it's supposed to be used for Krishna, offered to Krishna, uh, or somehow or other connected to Krishna. Like if I see a car, I think that car should be used for Krishna, even a fancy car. Okay. On that happy note, we're going to stop sharing. We went up to text 61 today. Write that down. And we will allow you, lucky souls, to ask questions. First, let me unmute you all. You're allowed to unmute yourselves now. So you could either type in your questions, or you can raise your little yellow hand, or you can unmute. I see Gopal raising his little yellow hand. So,
Please accept my obeisance, Shri Gurudev.
yes.
So we're reading about the prince who has similar features to Krishna, and therefore reminding Lord Chaitanya of Krishna.
Yeah.
We also read in Krishna book how some of Krishna's cowherd boyfriends have very similar looks to him.
Yes.
So is this similar, or is it Sarupya Mukti? Is it a type of
Yes, the type of Sarupya Mukti. Like some coward boyfriends, even they wear peacock feathers. I was just reading that the other day. You know, oftentimes we think only Krishna wears a peacock feather, but it's described that some of the coward boys too. So yes, but there's certain features, and that is ultimately is attractive to Krishna. You know, Kaustubha Mani, like this, and the Srivatsa. There's certain features that distinguish Krishna, and Krishna is ultimately much more attractive than anyone else.
yeah?
Yes,
So
they
can
look very similar to Krishna.
so Sarupya Mukti can sort of manifest a little bit even in this material world for some great devotees?
I'm going to tell a funny story right now. There was one. There was one. Oh my God! I don't know if I should tell this. This has nothing to
Yes,
do with the
please.
question. It just stimulated my humor. There's this famous actor called The Rock. You know who I'm talking about?
Dwayne
Gopal?
Johnson. Yeah, Dwayne
Yes.
Johnson.
So there's a policeman who he's called a doppelganger, and he looks exactly like him. And so when he pulls people, he pulls people over for a ticket. They think they're being pulled over by this person, and they ask for his autograph rather than getting scared that they're getting the ticket. So that has nothing to do with your question. It just stimulated my humor. It was deep enough for my humor. So anyway, yes, there's people who I mean there's different features too, but they may have the same bodily color as Krishna. It's not exactly the same as in the Vaikuntha planas, where there's sometimes people like Gopal Kumar get confused when they see. But yeah, it's very similar features, and that's a type of sarup. And also salokya, samipya, not exactly sarshti, but you know, salokya, samipya. Anyway, if you don't know what that means,
Okay.
you haven't been listening to class for the last few months. They live on the same planet as the Lord and they associate with the Lord. How about that? And some of them may have some of the same opulence as the Lord, but not to the same degree. So devotees sometimes, yes, pure devotees sometimes, they will accept the different types of mukti, but not sayuja mukti, because sayuja mukti is merging into the existence of the Lord. only if Krishna wants. But the devotees don't ask for it. A pure devotee doesn't say, take me back to Godhead. As a, oh my God, I guess my humor is being stimulated too much. Beam me up, Krishna. I don't know if you know what that's in reference to. That's in reference to a movie named Star Trek, where there was someone who was in charge of the transport mechanism. His name was Scotty. Beam me up. That's actually kind of funny, where I'm so fried in the material world. Beam me up, Krishna. So all of a sudden you'll be looking at me giving a class, and the body will just like dissolve into its constituent elements, and I'll be beamed up into the spiritual world. So a devotee doesn't ask for that. A devotee says, Janmani Janmani Shvare Bhavatad Bhakti Ahaitukli Dvaye. A devotee never says, beam me up, Krishna. Okay. These are all udipanas that are stimulating my humor. Actually, for me, everything is a humor udipana. So, Jai Radhika, you have another question?
Yes. Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Answer yourself.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances to you. So my question is regarding the Vedic Kirtan pastime. So I was wondering, why so like Sanatan Goswami and Rupa Goswami were not part of it?
Very interesting question. Because they had associated with the Muslim governors, and they were considered to have ness. That was the superstition at that particular time, and that was the culture. So Prabhupada actually makes it very clear that they could have gone in the temple. Haridas Thakur could have been taken into the temple, because he was a Muslim before, by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But respecting the culture, really important point, and I made that very clear in one of the previous classes, that respecting the culture, they did not press the point. In other words, they had every right, in fact, not only every right, they were
qualified.
Let's say Lord Jagannath wanted to see them. Not only did they have every right to go see Lord Jagannath, but because they did not want to create waves, like waves in the ocean, but waves standing. So they just respected what was going on at that time rather than protesting. Sometimes protesting is required. Like when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu protested when the Kaji's men broke the Mridanga drum, then there was a protest. But when we're dealing with certain cultural things, like they say, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, it's not that we want to impose. I mean, it's a really important point. People oftentimes talk about cultural conquest, Hare Krishna cultural conquest. That doesn't mean we're going to change people's culture, but we're going to adapt their culture to Krishna consciousness. So when people have certain cultural biases, it's not our business to really just like disturb the whole society, to disturb those cultural biases. For example, I should not force myself to go into the temple in Jagannath Puri. I mean, for example, the Indian Supreme Court ruled that all devotees could go into the temple, including the Western devotees. So I could actually hire a lawyer in India and force my way into the temple. And this is what good would it do? What good would it do? It's just like, showing that I'm better than or as good as they are, The devotee doesn't do those things. I mean, for example, there was recently a temple, the Supreme Court ruled that the women could go into a particular temple. So the women lined up for thousands of them to go into the temple and require the whole Indian government to guard them so they were attacked by these agitated men. And what good does it do? Because Krishna's in your heart. Krishna wants to make it so I can go in the temple, and make it so I can go in the temple. But Krishna's given me the nectar of the holy name. That's the point. I can chant Hare Krishna. I can manifest Krishna on the tip of my tongue. I can worship the deities here. and I'm serving Prabhupada. I mean, if Krishna wanted, then I would do it. So they respected the culture because it was well known that they had actually changed their names. Not only did they work for the Muslim government, but they changed their names. Davir Kash and Shakur Malik. So therefore, they respected the culture. And similarly, when we go places, we shouldn't disturb the minds of those who are materially attached, but encourage them to work in a spirit of devotion. That's what Krishna says in the Gita. You know, we just don't attack their culture. You know, if we go to China, let them eat with chopsticks. I mean, what's the problem? We say, oh, when did Prabhupada ever eat with chopsticks? See, here's my chopsticks. Chopsticks. So when did that's funny. When did Prabhupada ever eat with chopsticks? But when did Prabhupada play the guitar? When did Prabhupada do so many things, play the djembe drum? When did Prabhupada do this? When did Prabhupada do that? You know. I mean, sometimes I go swimming and I wear a swimming suit. When did Prabhupada wear a swimming suit? He wore a gamsha. You know, that's another thing. You think, devotees think, if you go swimming, you have to wear a gamsha. You can't wear a swimming suit because swimming suits are Maya. They're Western dress. Gamshas are spiritual. Like, for example, I'll tell you a funny thing. I basically almost never use a gamsha. I use a towel. I was born in the West. So people say, why are you using a towel? Towel is Western. You should use a gamsha. I mean, what is this? They made it into a spiritual principle. It's part of our Siddhanta, gamshas. What the hell is that? I mean, it's really crazy. So therefore, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. When in America, do as the Americans do. Whatever brings people to Krishna consciousness. If it brought people to Krishna consciousness for me to hang glide, I would go hang gliding. But it doesn't, so I can't go hang gliding. So whatever works. Whatever works, just like we're so stuck up. People just say, well, women should be in a certain position, should be in the kitchen, like that. Just like the other day, someone was attending one of my classes, one of my disciples, originally from Colombia. She was attending my class, and she was telling me about the sannyasi who was going around telling people that women should only be in the kitchen. And so recently she started a whole petition on Change.org. There's this thing called Change.org. And so she has like hundreds of people petitioning to make this sannyasi apologize, which is kind of cute. Because if the sannyasi doesn't apologize, I'm going to have Mother Urmila come to him. And then the sannyasi is going to be very sorry that he ever talked like that. So he has 3 days to apologize. So, all right, so...
Thank you.
Question. So one of the questions from Nalini Kant.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Gurudev, it's regarding remnants. If we have remnants of pure devotee, where do we keep them? Like in terms of shoes or socks, should we put them on the altar or beside the altar, or should we have a private place, or how?
Wherever you want to put them. I mean, if you have a lot of remnants, then you need a special altar just for all the remnants. Or you can eat them. I mean, you could make shoe soup or something like that. You can boil the shoes in water and make soup out of them.
And
I don't know. Too many remnants and give them away to other devotees or other disciples.
okay. So shoes can be kept in the altar as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Or if you have
Gurudev,
so
regard
much, maybe give them back to the poor guru who's had all of his shoes stolen away from his by his disciples. You know, sometimes I come in the morning, or do I have any clean clothes? No, Guru Maharaj, I took them all for remnants. So then I definitely have to wear a gamsha to the morning program. Several mornings I didn't have any clean clothes. All I had was a cape, so I had to just like wrap a cape around me and go to the morning program because the disciples were so enthusiastic to get remnants. So, and then sometimes devotees are so enthusiastic to get remnants while you're eating, they take them while you're still eating, and you can't have a full meal.
Gurudev,
Isn't when the
how
guru? What's that? I have to end in a second. Isn't it where the guru leaves the planet, one only worships the doesn't wear them? I don't know. You know, you worship the remnants, but if you got a lot of them, you can wear them too. I guess, like a chador or something like that. I don't know about that. All right. So, any other comments? We got to leave.
Gurudev, last one regarding remnants. The skirts of Tulsi Maharani, sometimes it's quite old, and then because it can be out in the sun and things. What do we do with? There can be
You
many.
could eat. Yeah, you can burn them, or you can make clothes for the children from it. Actually, the
Oh,
deity clothes we usually auction off to the parents, and the kids dress in deity clothes,
no.
and then
We
they
can't put it
actually,
in the garden or something like that.
yeah, you put it in the garden, or you can burn them, or you can figure out something.
There is
Just
no
a
offense
sacred.
if we
It's
put it in the
sacred.
garden. Oh,
Yeah, you figure it out. All right.
thank you, Gurudev.
All right. We'll see everybody tomorrow evening. All